In our next lesson here, we're going to go ahead and apply some of the basic concepts that we've learned thus far in animation to kind of complex, to set up a basic scene of motion. Now we could go and create a path and go through that, but at this point I think we're just going to go ahead and show you how a basic point A to point B animation works. Working with time configuration. So I'd like to show you this first before we begin. It's important that you understand this equation, or I should say series of equations. They're all the same really. We're working with distance, speed, and time. And so what important is that to determine distance, we need to know the speed of the plane and the time. Now, I particularly, off the top of my head, do not know how fast a fighter jet can go. But this is obviously some kind of statistic that you can find on the internet. Because if you're doing a military reenactment, you'd be able to find that information. We could determine, okay, that for instance, if we don't know the speed, we know that the plane flew 1 mile over say 30 seconds. And again, I'm not an air person here. By using those two pieces, we could go ahead and figure out how fast that airplane was moving. Or if we knew how fast it was moving and how far it went, we'd be able to determine how long it took. What we're really shooting for here is not so much speed. We're not going to be able to really go in and say, we want this thing to go 500 miles an hour. But what we do want to realize is we have control over the distance it's going to fly and the time. All right, so we're really going to be doing distance divided by time, and that'll tell us what our speed is. And of course, depending on what criteria you have. So going back into Max, we'll give you an example here. I have this the plane grouped up, and I can go ahead and take that plane, and let's say I'm going to rotate it here in my top view, and I'm going to go in and set my time configuration. Now I'm at 400 frames, and we can all do the math and say, all right, typical 30 frames per second is what we view, but that's not going to help us when setting up a reenactment that's going to involve speed, distance, and time. So let's go in to time configuration down here at the very bottom. There's a little box with a little clock next to it. And time configuration, we've gone in there before to actually set our end time. Now, if I would go in and say I want to work in real time, it is important that we understand what minutes, seconds, and ticks are. Minutes, of course, we know what it is. There's 60 minutes in an hour. We all know how to tell time. Seconds, 60 seconds in a minute. Ticks, pretty much are 60 ticks in a second. So we're talking split seconds. So I'm going to select that. Instantly, it's going to take my 400 frames and convert them into an end time. Now, if you see here, we're at 13 seconds, 160 clicks. So we are, of course, working with perfect timing here. Okay, and I'm going to hit OK. Now, what's going to happen is my timeline is going to change to actual time. So let's say, and again, I have no data in front of me, but let's say that this plane had to move a certain distance in 6 seconds and 1,737 ticks. I would hit auto key and move it to that certain distance. Now, what is that distance? Well, that's a really good question. If I take my tape measure out here under helpers, and I take tape, and I drag a tape from here to here, you know what I'm going to get? I'm going to get 24,303 generic units. What's a generic unit? What I need to do is also convert my area, my units. So as a review here, we go to Customize, Unit Setup. And currently I'm just in the basic, I guess you'd call it default units. I could go into metric, which would allow me to set how many meters or kilometers. I can also go into the US standard, which I have fractions, feet, okay? Now you may have to do a little bit of work here and say, okay, how many feet are in a mile? I'll let you do that. However, we could go ahead and say that this thing has traveled by feet, okay? And I hit OK. And that's definitely not the unit that we'd actually want. But now my tape measures tell me we've traveled 2,025 feet. And that is not very far. So I would have to physically go out with my tape now, delete that, and say I want to go, I don't know, perhaps again, the numbers are not going to be perfect. But if I go ahead and take my tape and say I want to travel from here, and I want to go 15,000 feet. Well, there we go. I pick my tape. Now I know that this plane has to travel 10,000 feet in just 6 seconds. Now, of course, I'm going to delete this here, hit Auto key, move this back over to the beginning of my tape. And again, we're working for some really small objects here. But I hit Auto key, and a little over 6 seconds, that thing's going to make 15,000 feet. So I don't have a calculator in front of me here, but you do the math. I hit play, and that thing, it's flying pretty fast, but we're pretty far out distance-wise. We're seeing 15,000 feet in front of us. That's a lot. Okay, so that's again, it's a basic review of how we're going to go ahead and set up our animations. You'll need at least two out of the three criteria: time, distance, or speed. And with two of them, you'll be able to use this equation to go ahead and find another. Now, once you have your animation set up, all we have to do is pretty much go back in, throw some cameras in there, add our environment, which is all going to be drawn to scale, of course, architectural or metric. And that is a good approach at maybe how you do a plane. And the same thing would work here. We'd go ahead and measure our altitude at a certain point. Maybe we knew this plane was at 15,000 feet at one point, and now it's going to land. We'd go ahead and do that. We could also use the curve editor to help make sure that has a consistent speed throughout. Right now, it speeds up and it slows down. And of course, in our next lesson, or one of the other lessons you'll find on my YouTube tutorials, is the curve editor.